Okay, so I've now finished all the shapes, and these ones are pretty nice, of course. Well, I shouldn't say of course because I didn't do them, but I did grab these from a old student's project, and I thought they did a pretty good job. Some of them are a little more detailed. If you get kind of detailed to where they visually look really good, that will get you a good grade. If you just do the minimum of just shapes, that will get you a decent grade. And if the shapes don't look very good, that will get you a mediocre grade. Either way, these ones are good examples of really well done pieces. So one of the things that you'll have to do after you do these pieces here that I suggest is you do drop in a background because you will need a background color for the stamp. So right now I'm in the Nintendo layer. So I'll go ahead, and I've made these artboards already the size of the stamps. And so I might go a little bit beyond the edges when making these. That way I can always clip them. So I'm going to do an object, arrange, send to back, and then of course it goes behind the image. So I'll have to find where that meatball is. There it is. I'm going to bring it in front of the image. And I'm going to go ahead and just select some piece of the controller to assign this color to, and then that looks fine. All right. So now we're going to do the fun part of bringing this into your final template. So that will be a good time. Let's see here. So I have my final template here, right? And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. Well, I'll just leave it there as another design solution. But either way, well, maybe I'll get rid of it so I don't confuse you. All right. So as you see in the final template, these green areas are where you're going to put your little color thingamajigs. You're going to want to use your white arrow in the stamp because you can go ahead and leave the yellow. This yellow will just be the stamp's background. But you're going to want to go ahead and change up the color schemes of these things back here. And like I said, you already have your background in. So let's go ahead and get back to Images Demo and select all these from the Nintendo controller. And this is the part that's going to be rather time consuming. This should really consume probably 2 entire class periods, maybe one, but your drawing should consume about 2 class periods, and then this part should consume about 2 class periods, and plus homework. Either way, I'm going to go ahead and make my layers in the stamps. I have the stamp templates down here, and so I'm going to call image 1, I'll call it Nintendo. If you want to do the shoe first, I don't really mind. So I'll call this one Nintendo. I'll lock all the other layers, and I will go ahead and start to put this stamp in. Now you can repeat it 6 times if you'd like. And what you're going to want to do is get it so that it, you might even need to do a clipping mask later, but the size should be, if you come in here, so that everything is even and you don't have any kind of real funky lines. You see how this overlaps out here? Okay, so this is why the stamp and this layer is separate. I don't want to affect them. So if I go ahead and select everything again, I'm going to use my shift to bring this down to the size of the stamp area. So there we go there. And this needs to come out a little more so that all this lines up here. So that's good. And the nice thing is once I've got it right with this, I can go ahead and then move it to the different projects. Now, I still think the clipping mask might be the best way to go. So if you can remember how to do that, wait until you're all done and then make a clipping mask on this so that it cuts this part here out. It basically trims all those other things, like this and whatnot. So here we go. Let's do the different color schemes. The first is monochromatic. What that means is you're going to have the same colors. Now, you should watch the color scheme lecture that I've given you for the module. I'm not going to cover what the color schemes are because I've already presented a video that does that. But what I'm going to do is tell you how in Illustrator to develop what are called color themes, and that will give you these different color schemes that you can find. When developing a color scheme, what I highly suggest you do first is pick your pure color, and then you can determine the rest of the colors from that. So if in monochromatic I want red, that's really easy because everything's going to be red. Okay, so I have, again, the color themes here. It says it's downloading them. I have no idea what that means. I have my color guide here, and inside the color guide, I have the edit colors, which will bring up this color wheel. So, of course, and then in the color guide, I have different color schemes that it gives you. So here's a monochromatic one. There's monochromatic and monochromatic 2. But you're not necessarily going to need to use these unless you really, really, really want to. I'm going to go back to this, see if it downloaded anything. No, it didn't. So don't worry about that thing. Maybe you have to have it on your account to download it. So I'll go to my color guide. I'm going to go ahead and choose a monochromatic color scheme. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick my pure color, and this one happens to be red. I'll call this group monochrome red, if you want. And then here's the different swatches that are in here. And of course, you can add in different swatches in here. So if we want to add one in, you can. It adds another one in. And then you can kind of slide these up and down, and then that will put in the different colors in your little template there. You can also adjust the brightness and the saturation to give yourself different templates in here. You know, you can add them in and do that. But what I'm going to suggest you do is you do this correctly because you're going to know more about this than the average person. So with the monochrome, see, it gives you all these different tints and shades and whatnot of those different colors up here. And this is probably more than enough to pick from. So you probably be okay. Anyways, so I'll hit OK and I'll save that. And now that I've done this, I have all these colors to pick from to assign different colors for the controller. And of course, if you want to keep some things consistent, you can. So maybe I'll have that down there, and then these little buttons here will be lighter. Okay, and again, if I want to keep the same one, remember I can do something like this where I want them all to be the same color. Oops. I didn't want to select the start. I just wanted to select this part, this part, this part, and then use my tool here to grab that. Of course, I got this green. These are shadows, so I will use a dark red shadow instead of the green. Now, if I was doing complementary, then the green might work. But I'm not. I'm doing monochromatic. Okay. And so now this would be my Nintendo controller. Oh, shoot. I got the background. I got to make sure that the background is also monochromatic. If you use these kind of neutrals like grays and whatnot, you can use blacks and whites and grays in a monochromatic scheme. It's not a problem. All right. So there we go. So I got that. And I'm happy with it thus far. And that's how easy it is to adjust the color schemes. It just gets a little complicated with your other ones. So now that I've done that for this one stamp, I'll go ahead and I will then copy and paste this and move this over here, okay? Because now I'm going to, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to do it all over again, but I'm going to be using a different color scheme, okay? So now, let's go ahead and go through some of the color schemes you're using. I'm going to use analogous here. So this would be easy to select. They have analogous, but I'm going to go ahead and bring up the color wheel because I just like the color wheel more. And get to analogous, and of course it's only in this area. I want to pull it out to the pure saturated colors so that I get the pure saturated colors. Now this big one is your pure, right? Remember how I told you you need to pick your pure color? And watch out for analogous. See how it fans all over the place? You have to be very careful with this because some areas of the color wheel are tighter than the others. For instance, analogous is only the two neighboring colors, meaning if I have red, orange and yellow are no good because orange neighbors red, and purple neighbors red. So I don't want pure orange or pure purple. I can do red, orange, and red, purple because those are the true neighboring colors. So for red, I can get here to get to almost purple and almost orange, and this is fine for an analogous scheme for red. But if I go to somewhere like blue, it almost moves on the wheel too fast. I have both blue and purple. So in this area, I kind of have to tighten up the blue to get myself blue, blue greens, and blue purples. Same thing with yellow. You know, some of the wavelengths, they're just a little tighter. Whereas other areas like purple here, I would really need to spread it out to get to, I have to move it about here to get my red purples and blue purples. So that's just what you want to watch out for when you do this. All right, so let's do an analogous scheme. I did red for the monochromatic. Let's go ahead and we'll do red again. So that would include red, orange, and red, purple as my analogous scheme. So I'm going to call this analogous red, right? And then I will go ahead and see how that gives me this color scheme up here. I will go ahead and hit OK. Yes. And now I can go back in and start to add in some of these other colors that come from the scheme. So for instance, those are going to be purple. I probably want these little guys to be, no, I don't want the start and select. Let's try this again. Shift, 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 shift. And then these guys will have like a kind of a light red orange. Maybe this time instead of a black controller, I'll actually have like a, it's ugly. Well, let me say this though, what you can do here, and this is something that you'll want to know. You're not necessarily limited to these here. So let's say I want to move into, and I wanted this to be a lot darker, but I still wanted that tinge of purple in there. So I want it almost black, but I want it like a colored black. I can go into my color here, right? And then I can go to my HSB from the menu, and then I can move this down to black, and I might saturate these with a little more purple. And this will give me that dark, rich tone, but it'll also give me a colorized kind of a dark, rich shade of purple, which is good. That's why you have to be careful with these swatches. Notice how that changed all the swatches that are here, and it made it darker because they're shades. So these are the tints, these are the shades, and it's darkened everything. But that's one thing that you can do. As long as you have your pure colors set in here, once you've done that, you can go to your HSB. You do not change H because that will change the position on the color wheel, and we already made those positions. So we can change the saturation and brightness in this. And so this one would be analogous. I have red, red, purple, red, orange used in this theme. I already had red here from monochromatic, so that's good. Great. So as we go on here, again, you know the different color schemes, but I'll just go ahead and continue through and just show you really quickly, since I've already shown you all the editing options, right? So we'll get to complementary. Again, I'm not going to be too quick with this stuff. So I'll go ahead into this part, hit the color wheel. I will find complementary. Let's see, do they have a complement in here? They should. Here it is, a left complement, right complement. So here's complementary. So there's my two things, but I want more than two. So number one, this should be brighter, at least to start. Because if it's bright, there's your pure, there's your tints, and there's your shades. You always want it to start bright. And then really a complement. These are your two options. It's almost like two monochromatics. Okay, so I'll go ahead and hit OK. And shoot. Let's cancel that. I'll call it monochromatic. And this is a red purple. Right? I'm gonna hit OK. That will save it. And then I'll go ahead and go in here. And now I'll go ahead and start changing things to my monochrome. Right? And then this could be like a really dark green now. Dark green. Okay, background probably be like this really light green if I wanted to. Change it to this light purple. Okay, the cable, same thing. We'll just get a darker version here of the shades. But again, grays are fine with me if you want them, right? So I need to make sure I select all this stuff and start changing it. This can be a bright purple. All right, this is red, so this sticks out like a sore thumb because it's not part of the color scheme. But you can see that you can use these saturated colors. I do really encourage you, though, to start using more muted colors like this, especially for the background. And even with this, I mean, this is just too much, this green. It's nicer when you start using colors that aren't so extreme or contrasty. But I think for the outline, maybe the green does do okay, especially since it's like a video game type thing, and we think of bright colors with video games, so it might be good, right? Split complements. I think we saw that. And then again, instead of going into the last two, I'll just quickly show you on the color wheel where they are. So if we come to split complement, there it is. And what I can do, recolor artwork. So this even recolors it to the split complement. So I can say, okay, I want this color to be in here. I want this color to be in here. This is very interesting. I have no clue what I'm doing. It's even previewing it. But how in the world did I just do that? I don't even know what I did. Well, on the video, it should show you what I just did, which is really stinking cool. Okay, so now I'm changing it to this split complement that's here. And there's my split complement. So there's on the wheel. Oh, I see. So I can assign them. I did not know that, and that is really, really, really neat. And I can assign them and then change them. I can also change this way. And I can see what will happen to this. Oh my gosh, how cool is that? All right, so you're kind of changing up the color schemes. So, hey, I just shortened up your project. Right. I would save this as my split complement. And I'll just say, no, I don't need to save it. We can go into triad. So here's the triad, and now I want to change this. This was my original monochrome, right? And we're going to go to triad, and then we can go to the color wheel area, and I'm in the assign area, so I'll go ahead and assign what colors I want for the triad. And again, some of them are just a little extreme. I don't really care for it. But let's go over to the edit, and then again, I might want a blue, yellow, pink triad. Purple, orange, okay? And then after I've done this, of course, since my triad colors are up here that I've just selected for this, I can still go in and say, wow, this is way too many bright colors. So for the control pad, for instance, I'll go to my color. There's my HSB, and I want something to be a little darker. So that's how you get in and customize these things. And then, of course, finally, we get to the tetrad. And vavoom. We'll go into our color wheel again. We will look for the tetrad group, which are just a bunch of split complements. And this one, I want to go into the wheel and make sure I've pulled these things out. There's my pure color. These are kind of separated. So this tetrad is the wrong tetrad. Let me cancel that tetrad and go back to the color wheel, edit, and I want a, let's see, the tetrad 2, tetrad 3. Yeah, there we go. These are two complements that move together. So I'll get this tetrad here, and then I can move this to be something like this is more like a true tetrad that we talk about. You have the two dyads, which are the neighboring major colors, and then the complements. So then I'll go ahead and do the same thing. I'll go to assign. I'll start assigning the colors. But remember what they said with tetrad in the video is a good thing to do is pick one main color and then have a lot of other colors support it. So if we want that to be green, that's totally fine. So maybe it's mostly green with just some of the other colors supporting it. So if I want it dominant green, I might even make this background green and just some of the highlights to be some of the other colors. So these are red. I'll go ahead and make these ones the purple, kind of like this little thing here. And then who knows, maybe I'll even make this one, that one's already green, but I'll make it a really dark purple. And this is a pretty good tetrad because the majority of it is the green with other highlights in here. Okay, so that's doing the color schemes. And now I've got my stamps. I've got my different color schemes. This is awesome. One thing I just want to make sure I do for each one, and this just takes a little time, but I do want to clip them down, okay? In the stamp layer, if you go to layer, you're going to want to go ahead. Well, you wouldn't lock it yet. Well, you could lock it and turn it off. In the stamp layer, you do have this little background, right? Oh, the square is bigger. Well, you're going to want to try to crop this at this area here, right? So in your background, you should have that background shape. Okay, so here's what I'm going to suggest that you do. Your background is the correct size. See this background layer here? So I'm going to suggest that in each case where you want the background cropped right to there, you will duplicate this background layer by clicking and dragging on the new layer. And then we will do an arrange. I'm sorry, we got to select it. We'll select the top one, object arrange, send to front, bring to front. That will put it on top of everything. Now we select everything in this layer, and we will go to object, clipping mask, make. Okay, and there we go. Now this thing has been clipped into the postage stamp piece. All right, and I might even say, oh shoot, I can see a little bit of the green background back here. Well, once you've gotten the templates in, you can do two things. You can take this clipping mask that I've just made, right? Here, let me zoom out. You can take this clipping mask that I've just made, and you can make it a slightly larger. Okay, I've moved it, I've nudged it, so I'll go ahead and make it a little bit larger. Did that work? There we go. And then I'll nudge it over here. All right, so that way it's lined up with this. You can also turn your smart guides back on and have them line up with that. But a really good way of doing it is doing a Command R, which brings up rulers, and then bringing a guide into here to make sure that everything is lined up. That's one thing you can do with these guides, which is kind of cool, is you can bring them in to make sure everything's lined up. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that. You don't necessarily need to do it now, but now this thing is clipped in here. So let's review that again on the next one. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go over to this guy here. I'm going to click on this shape here. I am going to go to edit, copy. Oh, I cut it. I'm sorry. Undo cut. I'm going to go to edit and copy, edit and paste in front. Okay. And then I'm going to go to object, arrange, bring to front. And what it does is it pastes it in front of that original one, then it brings it in front of the whole thing. I'm just going to select all of this object clipping mask, make, and there we go. This one's clipped in there as well. Okay. Same thing though. I'll just have to make this a little larger so that it's not. I don't see that green. Okay, and then I'll do that for each one of my stamps. And as you see, when I'm finally done with everything, I can just take this and save as a JPEG and submit it. And that's I'm saving it as the demo. But now I'll go ahead and go to File, Save As. Of course, not a JPEG. I'm sorry, save as a PDF there, and then we can submit that file, and that is what you will be turning in. All right? Cool.